The Cleveland Browns need a lot of things to go right for them to find a path to success in 2025, but none is probably bigger than the offensive line regrouping and coming back to the unit that most Browns fans were familiar with. We'll talk about it. Browns 3D on the OBR begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. We appreciate everybody who comes on out to the OBR every single day, whether it's to digest the written content from our fantastic group of writers or to join us every evening on the OBR streaming network beginning at 6 o'clock, starting with Browns 3D with your host, Jeff Floyd. It is Monday. You will have a piece from Sam Penix and, of course, Jacob Roach at 7 o'clock. Please stick around for that. As the Cleveland Browns are attempting to recreate their quarterback room and go through four different quarterbacks to see which ones will play, how often, how they're going to go with either the veteran route or are they going to go with one of the two rookies. A lot at moving parts here. Now the running back room, certainly a recreated running back room. Jerome Ford, the only holdover, new rookie running backs, Quinshawn Judkins, and of course Dylan Sampson. The wide receiver room, a constant work in progress, but none of it is really going to mean anything unless the Cleveland Browns can go back. And I don't necessarily need to have top five offensive line play like the Cleveland Browns had in the early 2020s. But getting this to at least a top half of the league, perhaps top 10, would absolutely be vital. It's obvious that this offensive line had their issues in the 2024 season. Coaching change was made from longtime stalwart Bill Callahan to Andy Dickerson. To be fair and to give credit, it would have been difficult for any offensive line coach to come in and be the one who essentially was replacing Bill Callahan. Bill had control of the room, had respect of the room, had the respect of the roster, and basically everyone within that locker room. So the change, which the Browns let happen, when a man wants to go work for his son, there's nothing you're going to do. You're not going to stand in the way. But it was going to be a huge, huge task to try to get that offensive line on the same page with a new offensive line coach. It obviously did not go well in any way whatsoever for the Browns offensive line and Coach Dickerson in 2024. Hence the changes, hence the new offensive line coach. Now we are getting to listen to veterans, whether it is Jack Conklin or Joel Bitonio, talking and embracing about the chatter that the Browns are going to go back to the system that is familiar to their offensive line, the wide zone scheme, the one that this team flourished with in the early 2020s, 21, 22, with a lot of the same guys who are on this offensive line now. However, it will be some new ball carriers. One of the questions you certainly would have for a bounce back of the Cleveland Browns offensive line would be the age factor. These guys now, Jack Conklin will turn 31 shortly. Wyatt Teller is 30 years old. Ethan Posick is about to be 30 years old. And Joel Bitonio, at the ripe old age of 33, is not getting any younger. Dwan Jones is set to become the starting left tackle for this team here for the 2025 season. Cornelius Lucas is here, would be serving in the swing tackle capacity, and certainly would be ready to step in at any point if Dwan Jones is not essentially ready to seize the opportunity. Having Dwan Jones on the left side as opposed to the right side, which he has always been accustomed to, is not crazy move. Dwan Jones is a guy who looks like he will forever be a very, very strong pass pro guy. The issues you're going to have with Dwan Jones is just due to the pure immensity of his size, is going to be the struggles that he will endure through the running game. It's not easy to always get yourself down on a linebacker and to be able to move yourself in that capacity where you need to be to shield would-be defenders. Now, Jones, to his credit, has come in this year and put in a lot of effort as far as his weight. As Jones works to keep his weight at a reasonable number, it's going to be vital, obviously, for him to be a guy who can kind of be the part of this great four guys that have been here, find his way within that group, and hopefully for DeJuan Jones, be the guy that will maybe be the holdover as the Cleveland Browns are eventually going to have to start to make massive changes on this offensive line, as none of the other four starters between Batonio, Posick, Teller, and Conklin are under contract for 2026. The wide zone scheme has certainly been something that was the bread and butter of the Cleveland Browns for quite a while from the Kevin Stefanski regime. Nick Chubb fit the system perfectly. Kareem Hunt was successful. Jerome Ford, certainly successful. Dearness Johnson, successful. So it is a scheme that tends to be friendly to running backs who can have that one cut and go and get north as quickly as they possibly can. You would think this would be something that Quinshawn Judkins certainly would flourish in. Dylan Sampson, during the draft process and after he was drafted, talked about his admiration to just getting in the hip pockets of pulling offensive linemen, get to the area, find the daylight, and basically just get on getting where he had to be. So this is a huge part. The Cleveland Browns were a tremendously successful team at running the football in the early 2020s. That's going to have to be something, regardless of who the quarterback for this team is, that starts to come back to fruition for this team. The four quarterbacks that are in contention between Flacco, between Pickett, between Sanders, between Gabriel, either are too old to be trusted to win games with their arm, have proven that they have not been able to win games in the NFL with their arms, or are just rookies who would need the big benefit of a plus running game. Whoever the quarterback is for the Cleveland Browns on any given week in 2025 needs the needs the running game to basically hold their hand and allow them to be successful and keep defenses guessing. Not to mention what it could possibly do for the defense, a defense that struggled while the offense in 2024 found a way to go 3-and-out or turn the ball over at an absolutely alarming rate. Now, with Batonio, Posick, Teller, Conklin kind of getting together for this final run here in Cleveland, that's a part that kind of makes me, as much as the age and the fact that everybody, over the last season or two, has been getting over some nagging injuries. I do believe the fact that, knowing that this could be the last ride for Batonio, Posick, Teller, and Conklin collectively together, that's the part that I think kind of gives me some excitement. Joe Batonio certainly came back to do this, did not want to leave his brothers in arms alone. Wyatt Teller has become a mainstay in the NFL since his time being acquired by the Cleveland Browns. Jack Conklin, in his time here with the Cleveland Browns, has been voted an all-pro performer. And Ethan Posick, even though it was never supposed to work out that Ethan Posick ended up being the starting center for this team, nobody cares necessarily how things happen. They care about what you do when you get the opportunity. And Posick has been pretty consistent, other than every now and then just, a game that maybe didn't measure up to his standards. But overall, this group, when healthy, has shown a consistency that hopefully will allow this team to return to running the football with the success that we all as Browns fans have been accustomed to during the Kevin Stefanski regime. The pass protection is certainly going to be vital as well, but you do have to believe, whether it was 23 or 24, where the Cleveland Browns were throwing the ball a lot more than we had been accustomed to, you think that number will probably come down here in 2025. In 23 and 24, there were reasons for it. You were bringing in so many different quarterbacks. He finally settled on Joe Flacco in 2023. And Joe, at the time, came in extremely rested, arm extremely strong. So the best thing you had going for you to close out the 2023 regular season was the strong, powerful arm of Joe Flacco. In 2024, the offensive line was not creating running lanes. The running backs were not taking advantage of the few running lanes that were being presented by the offensive line. Therefore, it led, for the Browns, who most of the time were trailing by a lot, to throw the football more times than they were comfortable with. And certainly with quarterbacks who we all saw with our own two eyes, who probably weren't necessarily considered NFL quarterbacks. So when you get down to it, the pass pro is going to be extremely important. It's going to be even more important if it turns and goes the way I think it's going to be, where a majority of the playing time, a majority of the starting at the quarterback position is going to be done by either Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, both, neither, who knows. But I do believe the rookie quarterbacks will be the ones that play the majority of the time here in the 2025 season. The offensive line needs to give them absolute fantastic protection pretty much every week. Teams gun for rookie quarterbacks. They try to play with their minds. They try to mix up their defensive looks, do everything you can to get a rookie signal caller rattled. It's his tale as old as time. Now, the Browns can certainly make things easier on their rookie quarterback. Screen game. The offensive line has always been fantastic with the screen game in their time here in Cleveland. Getting the ball out of their hands quicker, shorter routes, slants, outs, etc., etc. All things that certainly rookie quarterbacks coming from the college environment, where it's get the ball in the hands of your playmakers and let them do damage, is certainly things that should fit to the stylistic play of Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel. Also, getting back to having the running backs assist in the receiving game. Kareem Hunt, his time here, was one of the best things that fit with the Cleveland Browns offense and actually had more success than Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt was always a guy who could contribute in the receiving game. Jerome Ford, at times here in Cleveland, has shown he could be a significant contributor in the passing game as well. You're going to need that from Quinshon Judkins, who certainly contributed in his 3 years in college, his 2 years at Ole Miss, and his final year in Ohio State. And Dylan Sampson, who's already been basically put out there that he has been working with wide receiver coach Chad O'Shea on wide receiver alignments, some simpler wide receiver routes, just trying to do everything you can to get your best playmakers on the field and get the ball into their hands. So the offensive line is certainly going to be crucial and vital, for what they do as far as what the whole offense can do in 2025. You're only as good as what is in front of you. And now the names Joel Bitonio, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, and certainly DeJuan Jones certainly have a reputation to them. The question, of course, though, is now can all of these guys actually put it all together, play collectively, and play as a unit and get this offense on? Whereas the change and improvement of the overall play of the offensive line is vital for this team's success in 2025. Of course, there are certainly other factors as well. The quarterback position, and we'll delve on it a little bit, but we've spoken to that obviously a ton to this point. Other positional groups as well. The wide receiver room, look, Jerry Jeudy, after what he did last year and early what we've seen of Jerry Jeudy this spring, 2024 was not a mirage. Jerry Jeudy has found his comfortability level within the NFL and is starting to look everything like the former first-round pick he was for the Denver Broncos that didn't pan out. The Cleveland Browns jumped on him and is now certainly produced well for this franchise. It gets, as we all know, a little gray after Jerry Jeudy as your top wide receiver in that room. Cedric Tillman, who had bright moments last fall in a 3-game stretch where it really looked like he was cementing himself as a wide receiver 2 within this league. Then, as we all know, the concussion, Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we did not see him again for the rest of the season. Now, with Cedric Tillman, there is a concern I do have. The concern is is Cedric Tillman missed a significant amount of time in 2024 in his second year with the Cleveland Browns, missed some time in 2023 as a rookie with the Cleveland Browns, and also missed more than half the season his final year in 2022 at the University of Tennessee. So to think that Tillman can be a consistent figure with his play is maybe one thing. To think that Tillman can consistently be healthy is also another thing. As I've just stated to you, over the last 3 seasons, injuries have been an issue and been something consistent that has held Cedric Tillman back. The Browns need Tillman. They truly need Tillman to show what he was for that 3-game stretch last year in 2024. But, and with him missing a little bit here this spring, did finally get into the final mini camp practices. Cedric Tillman, it's a concern. And, you're banking on two things. You're banking hopefully on health, and you're also banking on the brightest you've seen of Cedric Tillman being the overall finished product that hopefully the Cleveland Browns can get this fall from the former Tennessee Volunteer. Deontay Johnson, and what we've seen of him is obviously a brief amount since he has been here with the Cleveland Browns. And with Deontay, it's never necessarily been a question about what he can do necessarily on the field. Deontay Johnson's worst enemy at times has probably been Deontay Johnson himself. And it certainly got him into hot water and got him moved on from more than one organization. So for Deontay Johnson, it's kind of getting to be last chance saloon, so to speak. He spoke a little bit on it, and basically what he told us is he didn't really want to speak on it, and he basically just wanted to turn the page and get back to his career. Deontay Johnson, former Pro Bowler, a one-time second-team All-Pro. There is a lot of talent with Deontay Johnson, and the Cleveland Browns thirsting for help at the wide receiver position. This is a place where a guy can kind of maybe get himself right within the league, and the Cleveland Browns can kind of get something in here that they absolutely vitally need. They need the wide receiver help. They certainly need a veteran wide receiver who can help. Mike Woods, David Bell, they have been basically spectators this entire offseason to this point. Bell coming off the terrible hip injury suffered early in the 2024 season, still trying to make his way back. It brings us to Jamari Thresh. Jamari Thresh, 5th-round pick in 2024, played sparingly as a rookie, but all accounts and all the speak on Jamari Thresh to this point for the spring of 2025 is that Thresh has been a guy that's kind of been an up-and-comer and got all of the rookiness out of the way, now much more comfortable within the system, much more comfortable within the playbook, much more comfortable where he could possibly find his path to success within the Cleveland Browns offense. But even still, with this wide receiver room, you look at this group, and there is probably no way that the week 1 version of the Cleveland Browns wide receiver room is currently here in Cleveland at this point. Andrew Berry has always been a guy that is looking to tinker, has always been a guy that's looking to manipulate his roster. There are teams within the league that have deep wide receiver rooms. The Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots. It's going to be interesting the way everything shakes out down in Tampa Bay, where they have a lot invested into their wide receiver room. These are all teams the Cleveland Browns should be monitoring as the way things work within their wide receiver rooms. And there should hopefully be a scrap or two that the Cleveland Browns can jump on as they're going to hold the number 2 priority in the waiver wire. So certainly wide receiver and coming into Cleveland is certainly something that's going to be monitored very heavily over the next 2 months. The tight end position, finally got to see David Njoku at minicamp last week. And you can see that David Njoku is kind of already developing a rapport with Shedeur Sanders. I think Sanders has a pretty engaging personality that is kind of bringing veterans his way. And it certainly doesn't hurt, obviously, that when you come in, your father has all this cachet. Obviously, most of the players on this team were fans of Shedeur Sanders' fathers growing up, know all about the legacy, know all about the player. And that makes for an icebreaker that allows these guys to get to know Shedeur, certainly on a more personal level, which is what any quarterback is hoping to do within his locker room, is to establish relationships with everyone within that locker room. You're the quarterback, you're the leader of the team. You should be able to talk to anybody on that team at any given time. And David, with a contract that could be set to expire at the end of the 2025 season, a lot of people interested how that is going to work out between the Cleveland Browns and David Njoku. So certainly something to keep your eyes on. Then the selection of rookie Harold Fannin. Fannin, and again, you're going to say he's a tight end, just kind of offensive weapon. Could be a big slot, could be an outside wide receiver, certainly could be a tight end. Could be times where you find him in the backfield, motioning out of the backfield. Could line up as an H-back as well. A variety of ways to get a guy like Harold Fannin involved. And with his overall ability to catch the football and find the open crease and get himself big and get his numbers to the quarterback, it'll be certainly a bit of a transition for Fannin to go from Bowling Green to go to success within the NFL. But with his tape, his success against top competition within college football, you can see and you can understand that there will be a chance for Fannin to be very successful. Again, it may not be right away, but there's certainly a spot for a guy like Harold Fannin to be successful within the Cleveland Browns offense. As far as tight end 3 number spot, again, another position the Cleveland Browns certainly are going to be in the market for, certainly are going to be monitoring. There's no doubt. But right now, veteran Trey McKitty has actually looked really good this spring, has developed a rapport with the rookie quarterbacks, has a lot of success in red zone drills, catching balls for these rookie quarterbacks. Trey McKitty may not be set in stone. I'm sure the Cleveland Browns would love to maybe find that third tight end, but Trey McKitty certainly made a name for himself this spring. The question will be whether or not he can continue that progress through training camp, preseason games, and maybe find a way to get himself etched into the 53-man roster. The defensive side of the ball, and the feelings as far as the defensive side of the ball, I don't know where I'm at on this. I like and love what has now been done to the defensive line, the involvement over here the last couple of years, the emphasis on more talent at the defensive tackle position, all things I truly look forward to, and things I felt that this team was basically just missing on in the past, and just not basically getting their money's worth from the defensive tackle position. And this has been an issue from Cleveland Browns as long as I've been covering, going back to 2017. But it seems over the last, couple of seasons, the emphasis, and probably has something to do with the addition of Jim Schwartz, the emphasis has been on improving the talent on the interior of this defensive line. The addition of Malik Collins, the drafting of Mason Graham to go with the two second-year players from last year, Jawan Briggs, Mike Hall Jr., it really shows the emphasis the Browns are trying to work on generating more interior pass rush. And it's not so much that the interior pass rush has to get home. It's more hopefully clog lanes as well. Make things difficult. Get the quarterback to have to get out of the pocket. Then you have players, of course, like Myles Garrett. Players, of course, like Elijah McGuire, and of course, Alex Wright and Ogbo and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, all players who can clean up players trying to evade the pocket. It's really been a different tale from 23 and the way the defensive line and the secondary kind of worked in unison, as opposed to the way the defensive line and the secondary worked in 2024. Other than Myles Garrett, the Browns were not essentially generating as much pressure as they were in 23, not getting home as often as they were in 2023, making for longer opportunities for coverage from the secondary. And to be fair, outside of Denzel Ward, the overall cornerback play and safety play outside of Grant Delpit certainly suffered in 2024. That cannot be the case here in 2025. And maybe it won't be. You have Greg Newsome, you have Martin Emerson Jr., both with this sense of urgency. Both are in contract years, both looking to secure a bag, whether it's with Cleveland or whether it is with somebody else. Careers started promising for Newsome and Emerson. 2023 looked really good for both players. 2024 probably a year that both players would like to maybe have, erased from their memory. But overall, collectively, the Cleveland Browns defense needs to get back on the same page and play as one to be successful. You need everything working in sync in the NFL. And as far as the offense to the defense to the special teams, the Cleveland Browns had nothing working in sync in the 2024 season. They couldn't kick extra points and field goals. The defense was gassed and on the field and missed a lot of tackles. The offense had zero to no consistency. It was a bad overall product in 2024 rather. It needs a major upgrade here in 2025. It certainly comes from coaching. It comes from players being held accountable. It comes from team leaders keeping everyone in line. There are a number of factors to this. And the Cleveland Browns, and to this point, it seems that everybody kind of acknowledges things were not right in 2024. Everybody acknowledges that things need to improve. And certainly from the offensive line and some other positional groups, we are starting to hear that things are starting to improve. And accountability is a big one of those things. But you can say a lot of things that sound great in spring and a lot of cliche lines. But if it does not come to fruition, then it's just lip service. Now, the Browns are sort of in town this week. There is some OTA sessions. They are doing some charity work as well. I'm sure some of you guys saw the stuff. They had the rookies out today, with some of the local community kids, trying to teach them some flag football, this type of stuff. Shador Sanders out there, very engaging personality, as we have gotten to know from Shador in a short time here. Veterans are out of town. So I think the way this is kind of looking is kind of like there was a freshman orientation with rookie camp and then OTAs as they started to work in veterans, then mini camp. And now it's almost kind of like there's a closing, point for the rookies to get their work in, get about as comfortable as they can be, then go take their month, get their rest, and come back in about a month to Berea and ramp it all up and let the 2025 training camp / exhibition season begin. There's going to be a lot on the line here. And we can talk about whatever part of the Cleveland Browns team we want to. Most of it is going to come down to the quarterback position. Whether or not there is a guy who could possibly be a long-term starter for the Cleveland Browns in this building, there are only one to two candidates, Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders. Or does Joe Flacco prove to everybody that 2023 run wasn't just the last one? Maybe he's got one more in him here in 2025. It's hard to believe it would be over 17 games. But you never know. Right? You just never know. Kenny Pickett, and I could end up being dead wrong on this. I just think the more this goes on, and when we begin in late July and then we start matriculating into August and into exhibition games, I don't know necessarily where the Kenny Pickett fits into all of this. And, yes, he was the first one brought in. Yes, the Browns appear to be giving him, ample opportunities to show his wares to this point with the Cleveland Browns. But you would think if you were the Browns, the future of Gabriel and Sanders are probably more important than where Kenny Pickett is and trying to get Kenny Pickett to maybe be better in this league than he has shown he had the ability to be to this point. Pickett versus Joe Flacco. Joe has had success here. Granted, Joe's 40. Do you think Pickett is in a good enough spot where you think you can compete with Kenny Pickett and then move on from Joe Flacco? I just don't see any way where the room consists of four quarterbacks. Look, don't have an issue of keeping four quarterbacks on a roster, as crazy as it does seem to even do that. But the point would be is if you're going to keep four quarterbacks, you've got a guy who already you think is outstanding. You've got a guy who you think could be outstanding, and somebody somewhere in between. And then still you got to come up with a fourth guy. I do not have any idea how that would work in relation to the Cleveland Browns. Keeping four quarterbacks is a terrible idea. I don't know how in season you're going to get everybody the work they need to get. The thing with keeping Joe is if you keep Joe, he doesn't need a heavy workload. So if you keep Joe, you can groom your two rookies, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, and give them ample opportunities to be successful for your team. Got to a bunch here today. The offensive line needs to get back to what the Cleveland Browns expected from this offensive line, and it needs to kind of happen quickly. We appreciate everybody who comes out to the OBR daily, whether it is the written content from our fantastic group of writers or it is joining us here on the OBR streaming network beginning every night at 6 o'clock, beginning with Browns 3D with yours truly. Make sure you subscribed to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow.